You look at this shirt and you see legacy and you see greatness. And you should also see the GOAT, let's be clear. But you also see a reminder of the now ever more distant past of how the Chicago Bulls in the 1990s were not just a great franchise. They were not just the benchmark, the gold standard of the NBA. They were the benchmark and gold standard of all North American professional sports, period. Success, dominance, winning championships, star power, drawing power, all of that. That is something that happened in my lifetime. And what's really sad to me to think about it is there are so many people that are watching this video that don't remember those years. That in many cases probably weren't even alive for those years. Which begs a bigger question of why in the fuck would you have ever become a Bulls fan to begin with? And certainly why the hell would you have any excuse, reason, or justification to continue to be one in 2025 for crying out loud? What, the Derrick Rose years and the Thibodeau years hit you in the loins? Are you fucking kidding me? They didn't even make an NBA Finals. What the fuck is there to commemorate or celebrate? Fuck that shit. 6 championships in 8 years. That's shit worth celebrating. That's shit worth stubbornly clinging on to. And yet, here we are, 27 goddamn years after Jerry Reinsdorf let the fucking Penguin run off the Dynasty before they had a chance to defend their championship again and or be knocked off their perch. We're still talking about the mediocrity of a Reinsdorf organization, the mediocrity of Bulls basketball. And what brings us up this time? Because there's so many different things you can point to over the years to the mediocrity and the acceptance of and the embracing of Bulls basketball. And we're, of course, talking about the Chicago Bulls signing head coach Billy Donovan to a contract extension. Where the top off-season items of discussion for the Bulls are whether they're going to do a sign and trade for Jonathan Kuminga and what's going on with Josh Giddey and his contract extension. That's how bad the times have gotten, folks. They're trying to build a play-in dynasty here. They've done a hell of a job trying to cement that dominance over the league and that 9 seed in the East by fucking giving Billy Donovan a multi-year extension. Like, for Christ's sakes, we just saw the New York Knicks make the Eastern Conference Finals and make the right call to fire Tom Thibodeau because, again, he ain't that fucking dude. You ain't winning a championship with him, full stop, period. He got them to a certain point and they knew that he couldn't do more, right? So they sent him packing. Meanwhile, you look at the fucking Bulls, satisfied yet again to make the play-in game, and they reward the head coach that is overseeing this fucking mediocrity. That would be one thing if you were doing this by saying, hey, we're going to strip it down to the studs and totally bottom it out. And even though Billy Donovan's not really good at developing young players, we've got to have some type of stability and security at the head coaching position. We've got to build an identity. We've got to build a Bulls basketball way, if you will, right? Then I could sit there and say, hey, you know what? Might have been hard to sit there and say we're going to tear it down to the studs and go hire a head coach worth of crap. So you settle for the in-house option that you're familiar and comfortable with, that has a good vibe with the organization, even though it's exactly the last fucking thing I want. That's why the Bulls organization couldn't wait to run away Phil Jackson, because God forbid Phil Jackson expected championship excellence, because that's what he was all fucking about. But you're not tearing it down to the studs, and you're certainly not going all in. You're just trying to maintain your position and your place. And how pathetic it is for an organization like the Bulls, owned by Reinsdorf and the Reinsdorf family, who are fucking loaded, no matter how much Jerry has always tried to sell himself as not being a wealthy owner, as much as he tries to sit there and say that the White Sox are like a small market team. They play in the 3rd biggest fucking city in the country. Now he sits there and treats the fucking Bulls like they're a small market team. This shit is insane. And you know what? Where I squarely place the blame here? is not on Karnisovas or Eversley. Yeah, Acme sucks, they blow, and we all fucking know it. But they're just foot soldiers here. You could certainly put the blame on Jerry Reinsdorf, and God forbid, Chicago fans, there are so many reasons to hate that man. And wait for the day that he passes so you can be thankful for a new era and celebrate. As crass as that sounds, I know I'm not going to be the only fucking one. I'll never forgive that son of a bitch for what he's done. But there's a bigger culprit at play here. The only reason that Billy Donovan gets a contract extension is because Acme doesn't have to worry about their jobs, because the ownership of the Bulls is comfortable with their spot. They don't need to spend into the luxury tax. They don't need to go all in. They don't have to do this and they don't have to do that. They can accept and embrace mediocrity, because at the end of the day, stupid fucking Chicago sports fans, and in particular dumb fuck Bulls fans, will continue to sell out the goddamn United Center for a team and organization that has done nothing over 2+ goddamn decades to deserve that type of reward. All of those Bulls fans that will sit there and piss and moan about where this organization is at, hate that this team wins some, loses some, and never goes any fucking where, that hates just being a play-in team, hates being in the worst possible spot you could be in any sports league, especially the NBA, which is the middle of the fucking road, which is completely and totally goddamn irrelevant. These same assholes, these mother cluckers, will sit there and fork over big money to go to these fucking Bulls games. These are the same idiots that were probably celebrating when Josh Giddey hits this big, long, half-court plus shot to beat the goddamn Lakers, and lo and behold, it cost the team the opportunity to win the number 1 pick in the lottery, which went to the Mavericks so they could take Cooper Flag. Like, that's the type of embracing of mediocrity that we're talking about. This is on Bulls fans, most importantly of all. Oh, there's lots of reasons to blame Reinsdorf, and it truly all stems from him, right? Because he could look at the fan base that is loyal, stupid, dedicated to a fault, and say, you know what? They deserve better. I'm in my mid-80s, late 80s, whatever the fuck, how old that fossil is. I want to win another one. I remember that vibe. Like, who would want to own a team enjoying the success that Jerry Reinsdorf has had? 7 championships, 6 with the Bulls, 1 with the White Sox, and say, you know what? I want to have arguably the worst organization in the NBA because we just toil away and never do anything to change that plight one way or another, and then have easily the worst organization in Major League Baseball. Like, you've seen better, you know better, and you know you could do better, and he just doesn't give a fuck. And what's so bad with the Bulls is that the fans clearly do give a fuck. And on the one hand, you could say they are so loyal and they spend so much money and time and effort and energy supporting this team that clearly doesn't care and clearly doesn't reward them. They deserve better, to which I say, no, you ultimately are a product of what you put into it. And if you put in the effort to say, we were okay with mediocrity, then by God, there is no reason to change that. And sitting there and signing Billy Donovan to some multi-year contract extension just reminds me of how nothing is going to change with this Bulls team anytime soon. Only thing you're getting is a continued retrenchment of play-in game dynasty. 9 or 10 seed, maybe win one of those games, but probably not. Then not get a top lottery pick to get a real difference maker. Not be able to land a top star in free agency because nobody wants to fucking play with the Bulls because they know it's a shit show, and they're still remembered as the organization that ran off Michael Jordan, Phil Jackson, and Scottie Pippen. Why the fuck would anybody want to play under the Reinsdorf regime? You actually kind of question if a free agent did sign for big money under this regime, like, are their priorities in the right spot? Because you say, you ought to fucking know better. Really, dog. This is so frustrating and annoying. It's one thing when the Chicago Bears give Ryan Poles a contract extension, because at least he knew it was time to move on from Justin Fields, and he drafted Caleb Williams, and he hired Ben Johnson. The Bulls sit here and they make the same spot, give or take, every fucking year, and we're okay with that? And not only are they okay with that, they reward it. That's the worst part of all. They reward it. I'm going to go to my grave with the Chicago Bulls never really mattering in the NBA again. And that's a very sobering reality for this 44-year-old man to come to grips with. I remember the glory days. I remember when I was proud to be a Bulls fan. I remember when the Bulls were the gold standard of North American professional sports. And it has been a tragedy over the past 27 years to see shit degrade to its current state.